You're listening to Copy Chief Radio. Get all the episodes and join the community at copychief.com.
Hey friends, it's Kev. So glad you're here. This one's really interesting for me because it covers the things that I'm the most interested in right now in my own life as I grow up finally in the world. I'm 53 years old. I own a company. I have a team. I have a family. I've been married 23 years. My children are 19 and 17. Just to give you some context for where I am in my life, I am in a leadership role in my life for all those practical reasons. It's also something I care a lot about, and I'm fascinated by what makes a good leader. And as Deb was just pointing out to me before we started here, we volunteered for leadership by becoming independent workers, by becoming freelancers, and then evolving into solopreneurs. Anything entrepreneurial is not only a courageous decision to make in your life because everybody around you probably thinks you're crazy and it's going to be hard and you accept that, and it's going to be lonely and you accept that. But the rewards are so immense, not only financially, but personally when it all comes together. So if we start thinking about ourselves as leaders right out of the gate, man, I think that is really the X factor. I tell freelancers all the time when they show up to prospect calls, don't discount character as a huge factor in why they will choose you. We tend to think that we're at a disadvantage if we don't have as much experience as some of the other candidates. But I can promise you, most people I know who are hiring want to see character at least as much as they do experience. They would rather roll the dice on somebody with a little less experience and a lot of character, knowing they can get caught up, than rolling the dice on somebody who seems to be like a wizard in what they do, but is also a little off the chain. That usually doesn't end well. So I'm here with Deb Owen. It's so great to have you, Deb. We've been friends for a long time. And Debbie is as long as I've known her, been an Enneagram coach, helping businesses work better as a team, as a unit, helping leaders understand themselves and their motivations, their self-awareness better. And now she's evolved her practice and her study of this into something she's calling neuro-based Enneagram, which she's going to explain to us today. So Debbie, it's great to have you here.
Oh, Kev, it's great to be here with you today. I'm excited to share what I believe is a truly transformational tool. And I say it's transformational because when it's used well, the neuro-based Enneagram helps facilitate change within people from the inside out. We know the brain's main objective is survival and safety, and we unconsciously try to achieve that by seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, something every good copywriter will recognize. And each of the 9 numbers in the Enneagram model represents a unique approach to achieving these goals. And that's part of the neuro-based aspect of the Enneagram that we can chat about as well.
Let's give like a 1-minute overview of what the Enneagram is, how it started and what it's become.
Yeah, so it's actually been around for, I don't even know, hundreds of years in some shape or form. It's been recently, within the last half century or so, really codified into what we recognize it as today. But it's not like there's an Enneagram council anywhere that says this is the Enneagram and it will never change. And it's actually been changing and transforming itself in interesting ways. But the idea behind Ennea is 9 and gram is something that's drawn or written. And so there are 9 points on this circle. It's usually portrayed in a circle. And each of those 9 points represents a personality type or a personality style, a way that people automatically react to the world, patterns of behavior, thoughts, and feelings.
Yeah, and I can tell you from a personal standpoint, and I've written quite a bit about this and people are curious to know more. I've been seeing a therapist for probably since April now. And he uses the Enneagram as the basis for his treatment. At first, I was a bit skeptical of that, only because in my mind, well, it's like, do I want to really adhere to a system in these types rather than, I think when most people decide to go to therapy, it's to solve a thing or understand the way they're feeling better or something they've experienced and kind of compartmentalize and then be able to live with it in a different way, hopefully a better way, right? But the minute I met this guy and he explained to me why he uses Enneagram, why he believes in it, why it's been so effective, I was immediately bought in and really compelled to do it. So it starts with an assessment, always, kind of like any other quote unquote personality test. But this is not at all like, which Disney character are you? Right? This is not a lighthearted thing, but it's also really fun and interesting I'm constantly now, Deb, trying to get my friends to take the assessment because I'm so curious about what the result would be because I'm starting to be able to guess a little bit. Oh, I bet this type is prominent for them and those things, right? So it starts with an assessment and then we have an understanding. And then, like you said, I don't know if we touched on this yet, but you'll have basically the one I took, you have a percentage of how you are in each one. And the result is stated in a way it's like, I need this to feel safe and secure. I need this to feel safe and secure. And that kind of defines the types. Is that in line with the assessments you use?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for instance, my primary is 9, and they call it the peacemaker. And for me, I need to feel peaceful and calm to feel safe and secure. And one of my lower ones was that I need to feel safe, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nuance to them in the different types. The reason your top 3 dominant types are so important is because everybody will be different based on the other 2 types that play a role in their lives. And as you said, help them understand why they have the instincts they do, right?
Right.
So no 2 9s are exactly the same. No 2 3s are exactly the same, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And that's exactly right. And I think that we might as well talk about the fallacy that we often hear as people are playing parlor games with the Enneagram, like it's any other personality. Which Disney princess are you? For instance, I'm a high in 3 energy, but I'm also really high in 2. I think my third, I'd have to go back and look at my assessment, but my third highest energy is somewhere around the 6 and the 5 and also the 8. As a high 3 person, I'm never going to be the same as another high 3 person because my other strengths and blind spots are going to be different from somebody else's sweet spots and blind spots, which is what you were just saying.
Right.
That's exactly true. What I love about the Enneagram actually is it helps you lean into what makes you you. It creates authentic freedom in your life once you begin to recognize it. It can be a little scary and disconcerting at first. I remember when I was first exploring the 3 in depth, I was answering some questions in a book that I was using, and I felt like I was sloughing his skin off as I was trying to come to grips with why I do what I do. Yeah. And that can be a little disconcerting and even scary. And you can feel like there's a spotlight on you. Does everybody else see how vulnerable I am in this sense? A lot of people say, I don't want to do that because it puts me in a box. Well, if you say that, I'm going to guess that you're probably a 5 or high in 5 energy. But in addition to that, one of my clients told me at one point was the Enneagram helps you recognize what box you put yourself in so that then you can break out of that box, which is a terrific way of looking at it.
Yeah, I really like that. I'll tell you something interesting, and hopefully this will help give some perspective, because we don't want to go through sort of like every type, and this isn't a class necessarily on Enneagrams. That I think the takeaway for us here, while we have Deb, is going to be how do we think of ourselves as leaders, understand ourselves. It's just about gaining self-awareness so you can, it so quickly identifies why certain things you think you should be better at or more inclined to, you're just not. And why you've been able to achieve great things in other areas in ways that felt completely natural, right?
Right.
And like you said, that's not a box, that's freedom. That's going, oh, I was born in this box and I've been struggling and, there's a gap in it over there where I can fly out and but in here, I can't move past it. And you suddenly go, oh, this is freedom to understand what actually motivates me. And then for me, being with the therapist, the end goal is know yourself, sort of have that self-awareness, and then be comfortable just being that, and not so worried about the outcomes, because that's your natural essence. That's who you are. And that really the freedom comes in the way he phrased it with me with the three. The sort of culmination was, your mission now is to be comfortable just being instead of doing.
Yes. Okay. So I have a lot of things I can comment on what you just said, which is terrific. So self-awareness, if we want a definition of self-awareness, it would be being able to view yourself objectively, clearly, and you do that by observing what you're doing, thinking, and feeling. And you need to be able to self-reflect. A lot of people aren't very good at self-reflecting, but self-awareness has two other parts, one of which is that internal self-awareness, recognizing what your own kind of values, aspirations, goals, desires, weaknesses, your effect on others. That's internal awareness, but also self-awareness includes external self-awareness, understanding how other people view us. One of the things that is so fascinating is our struggle to be who we really are is a centuries old human struggle. A lot of what I do is with churches and individuals who are associated with churches. All this is anything that I'm talking about is applicable to any organization. But Paul wrote about it in his letter to the Romans in chapter 12, when he wrote something like, I do the thing I don't want to do, and I don't do the thing I do want to do. God help me, is what he wrote. And
Yeah.
we've been saying that for centuries. If we step back and take a look at ourselves, we say, why am I doing that? I'm in the same pattern again. I'm stuck.
Right.
And what the Enneagram does, at least what it did for me, was it helped me understand my internal, unconscious, automatic motivations and behaviors, so that I could then make a choice about what I'm doing. And so that's where self-awareness moves into self-knowledge, which is understanding why I'm doing, thinking, and feeling the way that I am. And once I understand why, then I can make an intelligent and specific choice about what I want to do.
Right. Hopefully more productive choice, or meaningful, intentful choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've got some statistics I'll just share a little bit here because it's helpful. Just about everyone believes that they are self-aware, but it's actually a rarity. There's a Harvard Business Review article that says that just 10% of leaders are actually self-aware. And it's even different between men and women. Of those, 19% of women exhibited self-awareness, with only 4% of male executives in their study. So that's interesting. And what this means, Kev, is that lack of self-awareness means that we're floating through life. Most people just take what comes to them without thinking they can do anything about it. And that dramatically affects all of our relationships, personally and professionally. And how many times have you heard a kid say, oh, that's just the way I am?
Yeah.
And even adults say that.
Adults all the time,
I can't help it. That's just the way I am. That's not true, actually. People say, are you always going to be the same Enneagram number that you've always been? Well, our natural tendency is to go to those patterns, and that's not a bad thing. And we are also able to begin to move out of those patterns if we want to. And I was initially taken in with what they call the harmony Enneagram. So as a 3, somebody who's high in 3 energy, I watch my language, someone who's high in 3 energy, that's in the heart triad. And if I go across the circle, and I know there are different ways of having the arrows and things, I'm aware of that. But the harmony Enneagram really resonates with me, perhaps might with some of your listeners. So I go across the circle to the 6 and the 9. So the 6 is the head aspect that I would want to tap into more often. And the 9 is the body aspect, the gut, the instinct aspect that I would want to tap into more often. So as somebody who's high in 3, I'm going. I'm even catching myself now speaking at a very fast tempo. And so I'm going to tap into my 9 energy and slow down a little bit. So you can see I'm making an intentional choice to slow down. So And each of those numbers, the 5, 2, and 7 are related. And so that's a way that we want to be whole-brained human beings by being able to access equally our heart and our head and our bodies.
Yeah, that's everything. Something you said made me think actually the opposite of where you went with it. We're talking about executives and the percentage of men, particularly 4%, considering themselves self-aware. And you said, and I think that, for lack of a better term, common person, the everyday person who isn't on some major career path and right, they do default to what you said, which is, oh, this is just how I am, or I guess that's just me, right? However, I think about someone in a position of power and they're driven towards success. And I think when you say 4% of them are self-aware, I think they've bullied their way through life more so. That's the image I get, where it's like, I don't have time to sit around and think about being self-aware. I just do. I get up and I do. And you think about that as a style of leadership that is just not good, and less good every day, I think, now than it used to be. Sure, it can work. We all know the people who hustle. But, if you watch somebody, like now we have this interesting ability now to watch somebody get famous and in rare cases stay famous and see how they evolve. I've had this interesting ability to do this because I've been in this industry so long, and we have conferences, right? And I can think of people who I met early in their journey, hustle, achieved great things. And then they always end up evolving more as interesting people. When they finally get to calm down and think about who they are and what matters, they start being charitable and they start having greater missions, and they just, you can see the change. And so when if someone says, will I always be that Enneagram? Yes, kind of, and mostly, but there's different levels of a healthy way to be, say, a 3 or a 9, and those people will evolve. So self-awareness, I think, is something we should all want. It's okay to want. And if people are telling you to stop, oh my God, why are you always questioning things? And you should be questioning. Don't we want to understand? Because look, at the end of the day, the life we have and the things we experience, we're mostly causing. And believe me, I am a very empathetic person. I'm not here to say there aren't horrible circumstances, but we all know 2 people can be born into very similar circumstances, and somehow somebody makes it out and other people fall victim to the majority of that circumstance. And so there is always ways to achieve and become a healthier version of yourself. And sometimes it feels random, and sometimes you get the blessing of a mentor or somebody coming in your life. But to me, the point of self-awareness and how it pertains to leadership, as we're talking about it, is you have to be self-aware in order to be a good leader.
Yeah. And the studies show that over and over and over again. Anytime you go to a course or a degree program that talks about leadership, self-awareness is, if not the first, it's one of the top 3 things that they talk about. And I have a lot of stuff. We probably won't have time for it today, but I have a lot of stuff I can talk about too, in terms of how a self-aware leader can then bring self-awareness to their team, and how a team can go actually from a group that's in, the technical term is group, where they're not really even interacting all that much with each other. They're doing their own thing and going through several different stages to become a possible team, to a actual team, to a high performing team. And if you want your business, if you've got a group of people working for you and you want them to become a high performing team, the Enneagram is an awesome tool that will help you change the culture and change the way people are interacting with each other. And 100%. So a highly self-aware leader is the one who can then lead their team to more safe self-awareness, and everybody will be happier, and they'll serve people better, and the bottom line is better. Yeah.
Look, I get it. I know there's so many communities, I'm doing air quotes, communities for entrepreneurs out there, all filled with their own version of overnight experts chirping at you from behind the screen. You got your Facebook groups, your Clubhouse rooms, just experts galore. How often do you feel like you're being pinballed around from thing to thing and picking up a little bit, a little piece there? How much of that is actually making it into your brain and your fingers and your business and affecting your money? How many of these people are actually out there in the field getting their hands dirty and testing to find out what actually works and what flops? Well, in the Copy Chief community, a real community, you get shoulder to shoulder with the most active, successful marketers working in the trenches today, all while learning from industry legends who rarely teach anywhere else, if ever. Copy Chief is an amazing community, super newbie friendly. Also, you'll find, elite level marketers and copywriters in there. They're all working to become the best at their craft, get paid top dollar for their skills, stay ahead of the competition by keeping their finger on the pulse of what's working now. That's the X factor when you're backed up by a community and you can get any question you have answered by people who actually do this stuff and can tell you from real world experience what to do for your project, for your offer, for your funnel, for your clients. Man, you're unstoppable when you've got that kind of confidence. Go check us out at copychief.com/join. If you've never been a member, you're going to see what you've been missing and you're going to say, where has this been all my life? And if you've been a member in the past, I would invite you to come and check out all the new stuff. We've completely updated all the tech. So we're on brand new platforms. Everything is slick and smooth and easy to access. And it's never been better. Copychief.com/join. I'll look for you inside.
I'll give a little context to this. First time I ever saw anything like this in action. Do you know Mike Michalowicz, the author?
Yeah.
And so I had the opportunity to go to his offices and he was giving a workshop. It was tremendous. His offices were downstairs of the room we were in. And he kind of gave everybody a tour. Well, I noticed on the door of each person of their office, there was, what was it called? Basically it was like how to work with me. It was really cool the way they did it. It was just like a one page, and it was basically kind of a mix between the Enneagram and maybe the Colby with, this is how I operate best. This is how to ask me for something and get it. This is how to know if I'm paying attention or not. This is and you go, okay, great. Operating manual. That's what they call it.
Oh, yes. I remember you
This is
talking
my
about
operating manual, and it was like, I was like, this is so cool. And so now that I'm fascinated with Enneagram and see the effects of it, I want to do this with my whole team. We've done it with Colby, and it was really helpful and effective. I'll give you a quick example. And for people going, well, what does all this mean? Well, I'm a 9. My primary is a 9. That's the peacemaker. And what is incredibly important to me, I want to make everybody happy. It's not my instinct to ruffle feathers. It bothers me when I feel like a relationship turned bad or somebody's really on. I've gotten better at that. It doesn't disrupt my life like it used to. But that's my instinct, and I tend to wander off in my mind and all these things. Well, my integrator, Mary, is a 1, which is like, hallelujah.
Yeah, you need, as a 9, you need a 1,
you need somebody
who's high in 1. That's right.
Yeah, and so Mary, her 1 tendencies are, she likes things organized. She likes to make sure everything gets finished. So everything I'm prone to not care about and not be inclined. I'm not an incredibly organized person. She is the perfect balance to that. So if you're talking about the person you work most closely with in your company, that's huge. Yeah. From a personal, I'm curious, Deb, is that kind of the work you do? Do you come into a company or a team or a group like that and help everybody learn their Enneagram?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can help with that for sure. And a good example of that is, let's say you've got a team of about 6 or 7 or 8 people, and 3 or 4 of them are all head-based. They're a 5, 6, or 7, and they're the ones who make most of the decisions. And the other people that are either gut-based or heart-based, they feel like they get bowled over a lot of the time. And so, for instance, I've heard of a company that has a bunch of leaders that are all head-based. And so they've put up on their wall, it says, this decision that we're about to make, how will it affect people? And how can we make sure that there are no negative consequences for the
Mhm.
people on our team? So being aware of that is really important. And as somebody who's high in 9, yeah, you would probably want to have as an implementer somebody who's high in 3, 8, or 1 in order to get things done.
Yeah. So valuable just to have someone like you who knows that off the top of your head. And, look, it's not to say necessarily that you hire or fire. It's not
No.
like your cultural beacon, but it's so helpful to understand. Like, for instance, when we did the Colby one, Debbie, what we learned is the only strength we didn't have on the whole team was clarity. Right? I mean,
That would be a problem.
Yeah, of all the diverse strengths, we're like, oh, this got to make sense. But definitely, so next person, hopefully we will get some of that in there, But it was just, and you kind of laugh, but then you're aware and you're like, hey, we have a tendency to not be clear. How do we say this better, or how do we report this better? Now, tell me about the neuro-based. How does that evolve?
Yeah,
into it?
There's some basic brain rules, and this is basic neuroscience. One of the survival question is, will it eat me or can I eat it? All right. And that's the difference between a bear and a deadline. And those both cause stress, and your brain doesn't know the difference between a bear and a deadline. So understanding when you're going into stress will help you identify as somebody who's high in 3 or somebody who's high in 4. Or what do I typically do? What are my patterns of behavior when I'm going into stress? I've got a deadline. It's not a bear. How can I recognize the fact? What do I need to do in order to relax a little bit? The key thing that's a difference between the different numbers is it identifies what we pay attention to. And each of the numbers has either an internal or an external or a both, believe it or not, way of paying attention to the world. So somebody who's high in 5 is going to be paying attention to internal stuff. Do I know enough? Am I aware enough of all the things that I need to put together? Somebody who's a 7, high in 7, is going to be externally focused. They're going to be paying attention to what's going on in the world. Where's the next fun thing? What's the next thing I can do that I can say yes to, that I will never say no to? And somebody who's high in 6 is going to be looking at the safety and the planning, and is this going to be okay if we do this? And yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, but we have enough information to go forward. And so they're looking both internally and externally. And each of the 3 triads has a number that's high in internal, high in external, and high in both. So that's a really useful brain rule to be aware of as well.
Yeah.
Another brain rule to remember is that we focus on patterns, and the patterns help us assign meaning to something so that we can make connections. And this helps us process information and remember information. Another brain rule that's important is that our brains only give us an approximate view of reality because it mixes new knowledge with past memories, and then it stores them together as one. And so just being aware of that and saying, did I really remember that accurately? And to give somebody else the benefit of the doubt if they say, that's not how I remember it, and not to get defensive or something like that. So there are a lot of these brain rules that integrate with the Enneagram, and particularly when it's based on our survival instincts. And those survival instincts, I know we're running out of time, but those survival instincts also talk about whether we're wearing a mask and in order to protect ourselves, or if we're taking that mask off and being our true and authentic self. And that's where relationships thrive. Yeah. If we are trying to protect ourselves out of fear or sadness or anger, those are the 3 go-to emotions for the 3 triads. Those masks don't allow us to have authentic relationships, and that causes problems. Yeah, there's a lot more that we could talk about in terms of that.
I know it goes so deep, but slightly thankful that we're limited for time, because it can easily just start to sound like a lot of numbers and things, and like, how would I ever keep up with all that? And I'll tell you this from my experience as someone very new to this, just kind of start with the assessment and understanding, like Debbie says, you're self-aware, being aware of what motivates you. Why are you inclined to respond to things the way you do? You'll see it there reported in those types. And then you'll start to read about other types and you'll see, oh my goodness, this relationship is almost doomed from the beginning because of our types. And it's not that relationships can't work if the types are bad, but often it can be very codependent. And people, if you know somebody who's like, boy, she sure can't pick them, or he sure can't pick them. And you go, why do they always want people with, and they see it's not good for them? No, because it feels helpful to them.
Right.
Or it's interesting to them because they're the other way. And we all have that friend who thinks they can fix somebody. And so they got another fixer-upper that they think that we have a friend, and he'll be the first to say it. He's always looking for the angel with the broken wing. Well, man, when you start just wanting to contribute to somebody's life and not come in and take it over or fix it or be their hero, I think you're going to have a better time here,
Yeah.
So it is a lot, but like anything else, when you start to understand it, it makes life way more interesting. It's made me way more productive. And also, like you said, Deb, the way you calmed yourself down, just being aware of your energy and why you're having an inclination towards certain energies.
Right.
This is kind of how you are, but once you're conscious of it, you can control it for the better.
And I would love, if it's okay with you, to just take a couple minutes and give some real strategies that people can take with them. As copywriters and marketers, the first one is real practical, and that is if you've got an email sequence that you've got to send out to people, and it's a 6 to 9 email sequence, try writing each email from the point of view of a different style. I'll give Melanie Warren kudos here because she's got the 9 buyer types, and that is based on the Enneagram. If you're getting good at AI, you can have AI help you with that as well. So I would recommend that if you've got a longer email sequence or something, maybe even a longer sales letter, you can have different sections of the sales letter or different videos in a video sequence that each addresses one of the different buyer types. And that is really which different Enneagram style.
Or even the FAQ, right, is a good place to do that.
Even the FAQ.
It's like, because, that's where if it's like, who could not want this deal? It's like, yeah, but why would they buy or not buy? If they don't see themselves, like I'm always writing from the heart, all my copy. And it's like, if someone's not feeling Kev, they're probably not interested. Like, all right, thanks, pal. Appreciate me. But so if I make sure I put in the FAQ, the real practical stuff that a head type needs to see, I have a much better chance of getting more people interested, right?
Right. So, absolutely. Yeah. That's the piece for the marketers. And copywriters here. And then just personally, I have a few ideas. I have what I call the A to G sequence. And so A is awareness that you've been triggered. And that we didn't even get to talk much about triggers, but what is it that triggers you, that causes you your patterns of maladaptation, basically? So awareness, then breathe to slow down, like you watched me do as I was slowing down. Consider possible responses. D, decide your response. So you get to choose. E, empathize with the other person and their situation. F, because I also work with churches, I say, follow Jesus by acting in love. And then G is give grace. So that's A to G, a great way to just, if you get good at that, you can do that in just about 2 seconds and recognize when you're getting wound up. And by the time you do that, then you can give grace to the other person. And then some additional strategies are keep track in a journal of what triggers you. What comes before you go off the handle? And how does it make you feel? What's your automatic reaction? Go into new situations or any situation, particularly one that seems like it might be stressful, with an attitude of curiosity or an attitude of humility. Learn to deal with stress in a lot of different ways. Meditate, take time off during the day, take actual vacations during the year, find time to laugh every day, have fun, be with people who you love and who love you. Another statistic I'll share is practicing just 10 minutes of self-awareness exercises every day can improve your self-awareness by 30%. And then recognize that the difference between people is the spice of life, and try not to get upset over it. So I guess those are just a couple of basic ideas that we can use as individuals to improve our relationships and our communication with people and just have a more enjoyable life.
I love it. That's beautiful. I couldn't agree more. In the little bit that I've dug into this and started to understand, especially about the energy, that is such a big one. Just yesterday, I was stressing out, running a little late. And it's this kind of thing is like, this is not how I wanted this hour of my life to go. Right. Yeah. And I just caught myself and I was like, okay. I mean, you literally just have to breathe. Yeah. Just sit for a second and take 3 deep breaths. And that, as we know, scientifically changes how your brain is operating.
And posture contributes. Yeah. So if you're sitting slouched over, that's going to inhibit your breath. As soon as you sit up and open up your shoulders or even stand and take a walk, completely changes everything. So that's why the Enneagram is head, heart, and body. Body is really important.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. This is great stuff, Deb. I hope we will do this more because we really there's so much more we could go into. And you've done such deep work on this for so long. Guys, I'm putting the links. If you want to have a call with Debbie and just talk about how she could help you, whether it's with your organization, with yourself, it is bit.ly/meetwithdebbieowen.com. Don't worry about remembering that. I will put it in the show notes. And then all her other links, and just get to know what she's teaching. And as you can see, hopefully you feel a little more aware just listening to this episode. We just have to start wanting to be more aware, and then we are, and then we find the paths from there. And this is a great one. So Debbie, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing this with us. I hope we do it again soon.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Kev. It was great to see you again.
You too.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. copychief.com/CCR.